Hello, welcome back to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education Research Center here at Murray State University, and welcome back to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Sprocket West Kentucky, and KY Innovations. Welcome back to episode 272 of 10 at 10. It's an even number episode. So, we are looking at the news of the last few days, what's going on in the world of cyberspace, cybersecurity, and more importantly, what can we learn from what's going on that can make ourselves, our families, our organizations just a little bit safer in cyberspace? So let's get going. First story that I want to talk about is one that I think is interesting because it's relating to a lot of things that we've been talking about. The General Services Administration has updated their IT security procedural guide that mandates GSA contractors implement the latest NIST 800 171 revision 3. The reason that's relevant is that is something that all DoD or now DoW contractors are required to do as well. Now, technically, they do revision 2, not revision 3, but to be what we've talked about in the past called CMMC, that is something that you're required to do is to implement those. Furthermore, it talks about some deal breakers that there is zero tolerance, that there's 9 things that you have to do, period, or it's a deal breaker, even if you're working through some other things. Access enforcement, remote access, multi-factor authentication, vulnerability monitoring and scanning, boundary protection, transmission and storage confidentiality, cryptographic protection, flaw remediation, and unsupported system components. Um, the reason I bring this up is that if you're a government contractor, more and more government departments are requiring some of these standards to be in place. So you may not be doing these right now, but what I will tell you is that in the very near future, whether you want to or not, you're going to be required to do it, and so it's going to be a deal breaker. It just is. So I would strongly encourage that you start doing that, and that will apply for you as if you're the prime contractor, and it will also likely apply to you if you're a subcontractor to that prime. So anyway, all right. Next story I want to touch on is some trends. I always like to look at trends because I think it helps us realize where things are. Um, Ransomware. Ransomware is continuing to increase across, particularly under this is looking at state and local governments, but it is continuing to increase. If you look at this chart, it increased for a while and then it kind of plateaued. What is that, in the 2022 to 2023, early 24 time frame? Well, that has now launched back up and it is continuing to grow. So, what this says in the 2025 Verizon DBR report, that breaches were up 44%. That is looking at ransomware, I believe, in particular, but it's up 44%. So all of that tells me, actually, let me back up. 44% of breaches include ransomware. 30% of public sector breaches included ransomware. More than 80% of these organizations had fewer than 5 cybersecurity staff. 70% cited insufficient funding, and 64% cited increasing threat sophistication as being a big concern. Ransomware is continuing to increase. There's different ways that we look at it. There's different ways that we can think about it. But the key takeaway to me is that ransomware is continuing to increase, and we need to continue worrying about it. On that same vein, this article actually comes from NACO, the National Association of Counties, and one of the experts has warned. They're talking to the mid-size county caucus. So we're not talking about the giant counties. We're talking about mid-sized counties. So, mid-sized counties in Kentucky might be McCracken County, or Warren County, or Davis County, not necessarily Jefferson and Fayette. and they're warning about the rising cybersecurity risk as AI expands. So, what does that mean? There's a couple of different components to that. If your community is wooing AI data centers, which many of our counties are, then does that increase the likelihood of you being a target? Yeah, it may not be specifically to government, but it's still this new opportunity. Additionally, to that point, if you're using AI in your local government, then how does that use expand the threat, and how does all that fit? Yes, we're increasing AI use as a defense mechanism, but they're also looking at AI use as an offensive mechanism, and excuse me, and that change is certainly increasing the threat, the risk, if you will. Um, One other related piece of that, and this is the part that scares me and worries me the most for local governments, is that the bad guys are increasing their sophistication at a rapid pace. We're not increasing the funding at the local government level at the same pace. So we have aging technology that's protecting our organization over here, while the new but the bad guys have all the new fancy AI enabled tools to help them attack us. We have to be right 100% of the time. They only have to be right once. So I think there's a real concern that our approach and what we're doing is not sufficient. And anyway, so that's something that certainly worries me. Let me keep going. I think I have two more that I want to talk about. Lockheed Martin was targeted by an alleged breach by pro-Iranian hacktivists. Um, and the reason I bring this up is a couple weeks ago we talked about Stryker. There's been a second healthcare company that has publicly said they were attacked by um, a pro-Iranian hacktivist group. This one, the threat actor claims to have stolen 375 terabytes of data from Lockheed Martin, which obviously is a very important Defense Department, War Department contractor. The reported number was a 400 million ransom, $400 million ransom. That may or may not be true. That's just that's information that is being reported, and it's mentioned in this article. My point of that is we're hearing about these large scale companies that are being targeted, but smaller scale companies can be targeted as well. So be careful with that. That's going to be a continued thing that we see probably even beyond the end of when this war ends. So be careful with that. And then the last thing I want to touch on is there is been FCC had a new ruling that came out, or a new order that came out, that banned consumer internet routers manufactured outside of the U.S. Now, what that is, and the reason that the FCC is doing that, is that some of these foreign made routers have back doors in them to enable espionage, facilitate intellectual property theft, maybe even support in attacking us. So there's a lot of those in there. If you want to take a look at the list, there's a link in this article. You can click on the article. Within that article, there's a link to the list of banned routers that it specifically has banned. There's a lot that can go on, or we can talk about with this article, but I bring this up primarily to say your home internet router is your line of defense to your home and your family. Making sure that your router is up to date, that the firmware is updated, that it's still supported by the manufacturer, that it's not one of these foreign made routers that are banned in the US. All of those things are really important, and it's up to you to make sure that your family is safe and that this home router is protecting your family. Anyway, perhaps we'll talk more about home internet protection in a future episode, but just know that use this as an opportunity to harden your home internet security. We have a lot of internet enabled devices nowadays. We've got to make sure that we're protecting everybody in our family the way that we need to. All right, I'm going to stop there for today. If you have questions, if you want to learn more about any of those stories that we talked about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next week back here on 10 at 10. Bye.